Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Yin Wood Snake presentation. My name is Shelton Crute, and we're so happy to be here. So happy to have you all here. Thank you. Let's see. First of all, before we dive into the material, I want to give you some context about who I am, where we are, and why we're talking about this subject, why I'm so passionate about this topic. So I'm really pleased to have you all. And I'm going to go ahead and show you some slides. Good. All right. So here we are. It's the year of the Yin Wood Snake 2025. Okay. And I just want to introduce myself. My name's Shelton Crute, and this is a production of our clinic, Ritual Health. We're an acupuncture and herbalism clinic in Berkeley. Myself and my partner, Adam, offer acupuncture and classical Chinese medicine, mostly from the Shanghanlun Jingfeng perspective. Also, Tibetan medicine. We're trained in Tibetan medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and pertinent to our topic tonight, Chinese Polestar Astrology, which I studied with Liu Ming for 12 years. I studied with Liu Ming for 12 years in Chinese astrology and also Chinese medicine. And I always say this because it's really important for my skeptic people out there, because I'm here for you. I never plan to be an astrologer because I think that astrologers are weird. I think that astrology is weird. I got into studying Chinese Polestar Astrology with Liu Ming because it was just frankly what he was teaching. And he was a smart guy. And I thought, whatever this guy's talking about, I need to pay attention to. So I took his Chinese Polestar class twice through, and then I did years and years and years and years of case study. It was a great time because it was while I was in Chinese medicine school. And I had access to lots and lots of people and lots of charts. Lots of people wanted to tell me their stories. And that's how I got into this. So, and I came in as a very strong scientific, rational, skeptical mind. So and I'll be looking forward to your questions, those of you who are not so sure about what this is. And where we are today, we're at Blue Willow Tea Spot. Thank you so much to Ali and Nico for putting this together. Isn't it a wonderful space, everyone who's here? It's a very special location. They're really holding down tea culture and also human rights activism and peace activism. And I really appreciate them for doing the work that they're doing. They've offered this space to us today so that we can offer money from tonight to San Francisco Safe House. This is an organization which provides supportive services like housing and legal and medical to women experiencing housing instability and survivors of sexual exploitation. We're pretty passionate about the fact that women and children have wisdom. And when we as a society help women, then we all get to benefit from that wisdom. So thank you very much for your donation tonight to help these people. I think I said enough about myself and how I got into this work. So let's just dive into the material, I think. Welcome to the year of the Yin Wood Snake. We've just moved out of the year of the Yang Wood Dragon. So we're going from Yang to Yin. We're remaining in wood element, and we're moving from dragon onto the next phase, which is snake. So this is just, what does this mean? What does this have to do? What are these animals? It has nothing to do with animals, actually. It has to do with a description of time. So when we're talking about animals, when we're talking about goats and dragons and rats and tigers, we're not really talking about these animals. We're really talking about we're using these animals as a little thumbnail sketch to remember the quality of the time so that we can coordinate ourselves with it. So we're actually quite familiar with all of these animals. We're quite familiar with this wheel of 12 that we keep going through and going through, cycling through, because we're immersed in the annual chi of one. We have it in our chart one of them, and then our hour, of course, also. But not only that, every month is going to have a different influence, a different association, and then also every day, and also each of the 12 double hours. So every 24-hour cycle, we have we cycle through all 12. So we're immersed in these all the time, not just one at a time. It's the Yin Wood Snake, but like right now is like right now is the metal dog hour. So, so how does your animal feel in a wood snake year, in a dog hour, in a tiger month? Because that's what's happening right now. We're in this kind of lava lamp experience of different predominant globs with lesser globs all happening at the same time and cycling and rotating. That's what it means to be alive and to move through time. So a bit about the orientation to Chinese astrology. We're going to be talking about calendrical astrology tonight. Calendrical astrology discusses it discusses the stuff that we all have in common. It discusses what's happening in the Qi environment, sort of the Qi weather, if you will. I'm gonna actually get back into, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and talk to you about it. There we go. All right. So tonight we're talking about calendrical astrology. It means that we're talking about the Qi weather. We're talking about the environment, and we're learning about how we feel in each of these environments. So this is different from natal astrology. If you've ever had your Chinese astrology chart generated, that's a picture of the time when you were born. And yes, it will tell you about the environmental qi. Those will be your stems and branches, but it'll also have houses with star placements that shows you where you have more or less action. And so it's a totally different thing, but it's relevant. One is more the nature of the pervading weather, and the other is more about your unique ancestral rhythms. So we see your unique ancestral rhythms more in the natal chart, and so you'd have to have that generated for you, and also the progressions. So this year, not only have we all moved into the wood snake chi, but also your progressions just went bloop. So your emperor and your empress just went bloop into a different place, and so this year may have an important different feeling based on it being a snake year, but it also just might be, this is a year for real estate, or this is a year for partnership, or whatever. That stuff you would be able to tell in your natal chart. But traditionally speaking, actually, the calendrical chi is seen as more important because it's what we all have in common. And it doesn't matter if it's a good real estate year for you individually, if we can't survive together as a community and help each other as a community. So it's in many ways more important to understand what's happening on the collective and harmonize ourselves individually with that so that we can harmonize with one another, than it is to look at your individual stuff. So, and so I think you can understand why this is such a passionate project for me, why I take pains to record this and put it up for everybody to see for free by donation. So welcome to everyone in the future who are watching us, who are with us tonight, because it's really beneficial to know what's happening so that you can work with it. Why? The point of astrology is not to game your reality. It's not to have an advantage over others. The point of astrology is to be able to relax into what's really going on. And we're living in a culture. I mean, I know that there are people in the audience who are all over the world, actually, but my context right here, I'm in America. And in the Western world, we tend to have a very aggressive orientation toward living. It's, we want the gross national product to be ever increasing. We want abundance. We want good circumstances, upward, upward, upward all the time. And the point of view of Chinese philosophy is that that's just not reality. We have up times, we have down times. Sometimes if we're up, it's just because it's time to be up. not because we're better. And sometimes if we're down, it's just time to be down, not because we're worse or because someone did something to us, you know? So part of letting go of that striving attitude is to learn a little bit about what reality is. And, you know, it doesn't have to be some fancy, esoteric, difficult thing to learn about what reality is. We can also do this quite naturally just by self-reflecting. That's available to us each and every year. Just be real. If we can be real with ourselves, then we'll know reality. We'll see through it. But in a snake year, it's especially good opportunity to start looking through, gazing through the veil. So, also, I will say in a Yin Wood Snake Year, it behooves us, and also in an aggressive culture, it behooves us to learn about yin power. Okay, so the dominant chi of this year is yin. So yin power is really happening this year, whether we like it or not. And in the West, we tend to be pretty uncomfortable with yin power. What is yin power? Okay, yang power is what we can do for ourselves, and yin power is what we receive. Yang power is I'm hungry, I'm going to go make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Yin power is, you know, my stomach grumbles, I'm looking a little sleepy, and I'm lucky enough to know you, and you go make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then when you bring me that peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I don't go, oh, I'm so sorry. I should have, I really should have like just gotten up and gotten myself a peanut butter jelly sandwich, you know, which is, I think, what many people are conditioned to, how we're conditioned to act, especially female-bodied people in our culture. If we receive something or, you know, instead I would just say, thank you. Because I know that I have the there are hidden causes that allowed me to know you. And so that's why I'm so lucky to know you and to have this wonderful peanut butter jelly sandwich that I can be so grateful for. It's a silly example. But yin power will be stronger and weaker in different charts and in different times. So I can't tell you about your chart without looking at your chart, but I can tell you about this time, and it's a yin time. So it's important for us to cultivate familiarity and comfort with yin power to figure out how we can trust a little bit, instead of trying to get up and go, I'm going to make that peanut butter jelly sandwich, even if there is no peanut butter in there, but I've got the bread and I'm toasting it anyway. In 4 minutes, my toast is going to be ready. And I know that in 4 minutes, there won't be peanut butter, but I'm not going to be deterred. Do you see how that's like that's an imbalance? And it's, I mean, can you feel that in our world? You know, can you feel that in our culture? And are we ready? Are we ready to let that go a bit? Maybe. Yeah. And I mean, look at politics, like you know, we don't like handouts in our politics. That's because we're not comfortable with yin power, right? So let's see. This year, the beneficial effects are generally going to arrive from previous and hidden causes. What yin power is really talking about is that which cannot be seen and that which cannot be known. It's things happening for a reason. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a reason. It just means we didn't know what it was. We can't know what it was. And being impatient isn't going to help it. So, all right. Oh, also, in Yin Wood Year, it's very important to learn to recognize the early stages of something. Okay. Rather than only when the year's in full, when something, not just the year, rather than only when something's in full swing, but we need to be able to learn to see when something is starting to happen, and be able to name that something. This is something that natural calendars show us really clearly. And it's also, I will say, why the Gregorian calendar is so stupid. It's so ridiculous. Why? Because it gaslights our wisdom. The Gregorian calendar keeps us from, I mean, we're all seeing the days getting longer, right? We can all tell. I mean, there's a spring-like feeling, even though it's rainy and wintry outside right now. The quality of light is fundamentally different. So, I know I've got some people on the call who are in equatorial countries, and so you don't have quite that seasonal advantage. But what season it is doesn't have that much to do necessarily with the temperature outside. It has to do with the portion of yin and yang available in the environment. So when we're all noticing this lengthening sunlight these days, but we're outwardly insisting that it's still winter, and we're going to insist that it's still winter until the vernal equinox. That's March 20th. Okay, today is February 2nd. That's really far away. How could we possibly say that spring will be beginning at the end of March? Okay. The vernal equinox is actually marking the midpoint. If it's harder to understand, I have one little visual for you. Let's see here. I'm going to show you. I think it's so important because, okay, so here at the top, you've got summer solstice. At the bottom, you've got winter solstice, and then you've got the equinoxes. This is a wonky. I was using the black and the white should be flipped, and they should be going a certain direction. So hold this lightly. But I'm trying to show you how the annual chi moves from yin to yang. And what's important here, I think it's on the next slide. Nope, it's not on the next slide. Okay, what's important here is that, see how the summer solstice is at the top? That's the middle of summer. How could the longest day of the year not be the middle of summer? But in our culture, we're going to always tell you, nope, that's when summer's starting. Okay, who cares really? Like, really, who cares? Well, it matters because the reason it's important is because it prevents us from recognizing subtle pattern shifts. And this stuff starts when you're little. I've got a preschooler right now. And I mean, all they really do is like seasonal stuff. I mean, they do the same stuff every day, go outside, have snack, rest, read a book. But like the content of the book and what they're doing outside is the teaching is the seasons. So this is really, really deep in stuff. So, then in our lives, we end up having all this struggle with transition energy. Why? Like climate change. How overt does it need to be before we're going to just like everybody recognize that there's climate change, but also for our personal lives, it's really important to notice when a relationship or situation has gone sour and you need to leave, or is really good and you need to lock in. I mean, Beyonce wouldn't have that song about like, if you like it, then you should have put a ring on. I mean, like notice what's happening. Like, what are you doing? And then just accept it and be able to name it before it's over and gone, So I think that we would live with a lot less like regret energy if we could connect with natural time. And I think we would live in a safer society that would be able to take care of each other better. So the natural calendars, they're following the movements of the sun and the moon in this way. So let's look at what we're doing this year. So we just got out of this big Yin Wood Dragon year. Wow, look at how much happened. We got some stuff done, right? We came so far, or we got dragged. And the snake is here to say, yeah. So what? Like, how much energy did I mean, last year was a lot of energy. Can we agree? Can we agree? So, the Yin Wood, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about debriefing what last year was, but I know that from what I observed, people felt really overwhelmed. Like there was a lot, everything got thrown at the wall. It was fragmented energy. there was sort of a bit of a breakdown. Uh, there was a bit of a breakdown from like I mean, there already really wasn't a homogenized cultural core, but there was more disintegration of any homogenized cultural core that we may have had. And some of that was good because we need to have new opportunities. And so we got a lot of new ideas offered up to us, and we just don't know yet what's going to stick from that. This year definitely won't show us. It's going to be a while before we really see what happened last year that's going to go, and this year there's going to be a lot. There's going to be ripening of some of those things. But the new ideas that came out last year really do have a potential to go big. And it was really all over the place. I mean, look at the election antics, the conflict in the Middle East just spilled outwards and in all directions. Let's take a moment on the natural disasters, right? So many of them were wind related. You know, like, okay, the deluge of rain and flooding in Helen, but it was a hurricane. It was a wind event. Like that's wood element energy, right? And the fires in LA that we just had. I mean, I have like a little list here. I'm not going to spend time on it. You can Google it yourself, but I can tell you about all the movements that happened with a lot of wind energy, but actually a lot of earth movement. So the people I've talked to who live in the area where Helen affected them saw mountains move. You know, that's how that event, I mean, if you guys saw the news, it was very underreported, I think. I mean, we kind of know, but we don't like no. I mean, whole entire mountainsides shifted completely. And we were used to coastlines shifting and even river pathways shifting, but we really saw earth move. Why? Because the inner element of dragon, I mean, not the inner element, the native element of dragon is earth. So we were in a wood dragon year, and we saw earth. We saw that wood acting on earth. So, so I think that's kind of helpful to understand. This year is going to be a little bit different. We're still in a wood year, but it's going to be. Hey, I'm seeing some people who want to say things on chat, and I'm here to say, oh hi. Okay, good. All right. I'm here to say that I'm not really monitoring that. So I might not see what you say, but you can try. All right, I'll check it later. If you have a question, put it up there. I was worried. We were supposed to have some more people managing tech. Thank you for your patience. All right, back to it. This year also has wood element energy, just like last year, but it's yin wood, not yang wood. And the native of dragon was earth, and the native of snake is fire, yin fire, to be specific. Hi, welcome. All right. So what is the Yin Wood Snake, right? So I've got this
to the
major shift from outward to this outward dynamic energy toward a very deeply down and in. It's really great for yin wood is really great for reflection, for introspection. It's a good time to be a beginner at that. So if you're not used to stopping and sitting and deeply reflecting and introspecting,
oh, how do I can't hear it now.
This is your year to figure it out. Okay. Wood phase seems a little bit in conflict because it's typically associated with being like a fresh start on something. And last year when we talked about the yang wood dragon year, we used the symbolism of the seed, which sprouts up and, you know, faces the cold and early spring and starts shooting up and finds its way through the dark earth up toward the sun. That's yang wood. energy. Okay, but this is yin wood energy. This is much more hidden. This is the movement of the roots downward, right? So yang wood has kind of this I think the word I used last year was audacious. You know, even though it's perfectly totally natural. I mean, think of how many seeds start and then don't fully make it all the way into how many plants don't make it to maturity, right? And yet those seeds, they're undeterred. They're just like boom, going for it. Well, yin wood energy is this tunneling, moving downward, and that's what actually creates stability in a real way. So last year it was just present you with stuff, present you with stuff. And this year it's okay, all that stuff that we were just presented with, it needs to root if it's going to do anything. So the renewal energy that you usually think of with wood is probably going to be more like a reevaluation energy, like reevaluation of truth, possibly a questioning of how to even reevaluate truth. A question about you know, even maybe whether it's okay to just stay in the not knowing. You know, which might feel sort of scary because we're used to knowing things and we usually want to push through because it's more comfortable to know something. But this isn't a great year for knowing things. But it is a good year for self-reflection. So it's a little paradoxical. So for people who are uncomfortable with self-reflection or uncomfortable with not knowing, expect a tougher year. And that's not a specific recommendation for specific animals. That's just for all of us, even snakes, you know? And snakes are, you know, in their energy, in the pervading snake energy around them. So snakes should be feeling really comfortable. But if a snake hasn't allowed themselves to get comfortable with that stuff, then they'll have a hard time too. But this is a great year for all of us to work on that. It means that, and we need to talk about what the nature of snake even is to get this, because maybe that just freaks us out, but the snake isn't freaked out. So if you tune in to this energy, it's very useful for looking at the dark. You know, if you're afraid of the dark, take a look. So snakes have a very penetrating quality. Let's talk about the snake overall, not the yin wood snake in specific for a moment, just so you can understand snake. Snakes have a penetrating quality that looks through phenomena at the insubstantiality of it all. This is what makes it capable for the snake to hide in plain sight. You know, so they're famous when they're hunting for being so still that whatever they're hunting gets used to its presence and starts just moving around as normal. And then it just is picking its timing and evaluating exactly when it wants to go for it and exactly, you know, which one it wants. And then making a very, very fast movement. The power of the snake is really in its capacity to sit still. It's observational power, but I think observational power is too passive of a term for what we're talking about now. Because when snakes are being still, they're actually doing something. They're hunting. They're not just, oh, I'm the mountain, you know. They're like, you know, I mean, they can they can be still for what for the rest of us would be an uncomfortably long time. It's like it's hard to do the bit. It's hard to make the joke because I can't be that still without, you know, making you think that the screen is frozen or something, you know? Okay. So this is how snakes can hide, can stand around and hide in plain sight, right? So they'll stand around and not show you who they are at all. You know, they'll hang out with you and with the rest of the barnyard animals barnyarding along, and they'll talk to you about whatever season of Love is Blind is out, but they won't reveal anything about who they are as they do it, you know. Whereas the other animals will say, oh, Hannah's so manipulative, or, oh, I can't believe Ross just showed us his Rolex again, or whatever they say about what's happening. And everybody's showing their preferences, but not the snake. They'll find a way to participate without even necessarily knowing what's going on really inside them. Excuse me. So they're just really not interested. They're not interested in material phenomena. They're deeply in touch with the unconscious. So think of it this way. If the dragon energy is the conscious, is all of the known, all of the seen, then the snake energy is the unconscious. It's the underworld. And the rabbit is the subconscious. It's like rabbit energy is underground, but it's not like the deep basement level, So snake just wants to disappear. It's not interested. It sees through all of this and it thinks all of this is stupid. And so if you have, since they're not comfortable with material reality, then if we have, all of us have discomfort with non-material reality, or if we're usually humming away with material reality in such a way as to avoid existential questions by doing, that's what makes it a harder year, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't continue to do. I mean, it's going to be a very active year. We're still going to go to work and have kids and, eat dinner and make peanut butter jelly sandwiches for our friends, but we can also sort of like see through the nature of things. And if we can't, then it'll be a year where we might have, there are like several outcomes. There could be more confusion. There could be more depression. We might feel like we're kind of going through the motions, that kind of thing. But this is actually the true power of the snake, this darkness. The power of the snake is this darkness. So snake natives offer this contact with darkness as a real service to the world. Most snakes have gone through a period of like mental health stuff, depression, even suicidal ideation at times is very, very common for snake natives. And when they get through that, then they actually are very well positioned for incredible leadership capacity. Because, when those of us barnyard animals are going through a difficult time, if you come up to a snake's going to look at you and see what's going on. And then they'll be able to say like, oh, hey, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Because they've looked at the void, So snakes I love snakes. They're low key my favorite. I usually try not to have favorites, but I can't help it. I just think snakes are so cool. So we have to be grateful to the snakes for their tolerance of the rest of us. Actually, come to think of it, the Buddha. The snake is associated with the Buddha. In fact, the Buddha's birthday is during Snake Month. No mistake. I've got a slide for this. Let's see. Because it's really important. Now Yin Wood Snake is not actually. Oh, thank you. Okay, here. Yin Wood Snake is not really okay, there we go. See that image? Okay, Yin Wood Snake is more of like a garter snake. It's not a super threatening poisonous snake. It's also not a super wise like cobra. Yin Wood Snake is kind of like, I don't really know. I need to wait and hold back. It's a baby snake, So Yin Wood snakes are, they're usually not going to hurt you. But it's still a snake year. And so I want you to see this image of the Buddha because it's no mistake that the Buddha's birthday happens in a snake month. Buddha's birthday, I think, is April 8th. And so look at this image. The reason that the image of the Buddha is so appealing is because he isn't like jumping around and doing and running his mouth. And he's able to like sit and figure it all out. He doesn't need to use his hands and feet to do it. He doesn't need to move. He doesn't, you know, like this picture, this is the Maitreya Buddha, the Buddha of the future, actually. This is in my son's private collection. Um, and actually, I love this image. But notice how he's completely in darkness. There's just darkness all around him, and snakes, and he's nonplussed. These are not really wood snakes around him. These are probably the scarier kind. Often, images of the Buddha will be shown with him holding a snake, and that's a representation that that the Buddha has succeeded in debate. You know, so he came in with his point of view. Hey, I sat under this tree. This is what I figured out. Okay, we'll go debate with the wisdom keepers of various traditions, and he won. So he's holding the snake very often in Buddhist iconography. This is the Buddha of the future. The Buddha of the future doesn't really know what's going to happen, but he looks okay. There's like some misty stuff, and the earth drops away and there's just blackness of the void, but he's right there in the moment. There's nothing in the past and there's nothing in the future. He's just right there in the center, in the right place, in the right time. The right time is now, because there is only now. The mystery isn't threatening. So, okay. Back to the snake image. Nope. You can stay there. Okay, back to the snake image, just so you understand this snake, like what this is, okay? And I'm going to give you some famous people, so you can understand it better in a minute here. But the virtue expression of the snake is wisdom, reflection. So we're talking about snake energy is very intelligent, highly intelligent, visionary, philosophical. It's considered to be mystical, a bit, if not a bit, alchemical. And the snake has an electrical quality. And by electrical, I mean it can just turn itself off. It can turn itself on, turn itself off. And the snake is independent, meaning it just wants to be left alone. It wants to do its thing. It doesn't mean that a snake can't be a fantastic partner, but if they enter into partnership, they do so very carefully. So that will have implications we'll talk about for romance in a bit. But the snake is really interested in nothing and sees through everything. So what we're seeing here with Yin Wood Snake is an unripe version of the snake. It's a snake that doesn't really have timing figured out, but that's okay. It's part of the cycle of time. It's part of, there are many wonderful wood snake individuals, and actually it makes their hour really important. So if you are a wood snake, or if you're having a wood snake, we'll look really carefully at the hour, because a yin wood snake can do so many different things, because snakes are very flexible. But when snake energy gets too heavy in yin, this is a yin year and a wood year, then we watch for excess yin, stagnation, and dampness. And we want to use that heavy downward penetrating energy and use it as an opportunity to rest, use it as an opportunity to heal. So the move in a yin wood snake year is to heal. So if things have felt crazy, especially in a yang wood dragon year, the move is to rest, to dream, to heal. Now, the native element of snake is yin fire. Yin fire has a smoldering kind of quality. The yin fire is like passion and like energy, but it's not flaring flames. That's the native of a horse energy. Horse energy is like ready to go, ready to do the thing. What's the project? We're going to do it. It's taking that smolder. So it goes from snake to fire. So next year is going to be a fire horse year. So we really need this concentrated snake energy, so that we know what to do when we finally get to the horse year. Did you notice that reporter talking about one of the LA fires? How I think the fires erupted on January 7th, and he showed pictures that he'd taken from his house, which is now no longer standing, of the hillside behind his house and where the fire was from New Year's Eve when people set off firecrackers and fireworks there. It started a fire. The firemen came. They spent a long time putting out the blaze and trying to soak the earth. But of course, the earth was really hard packed. And that fire can tunnel down into the earth, hang out in the roots, go from plant to plant, along under the ground in the roots, and then 7, 8 days later, we get the fires that erupted on, with the right wind conditions. We get the fires that we saw in LA. That's yin fire, people. That's what snake can do. Snake is so powerful. That's the native energy of snake. So this is a yin wood snake, but it has that native energy somewhere in it. Okay. So this is not a year to be in a hurry. Stick with the yin wood because that's where we're at. Don't try to be like, yin fire snaking. It's observant, but not passively. It's choosing its moment. And the Yin Wood Snake is not going to actually, like the Yin Wood Snake Year is not going to be the moment. It's just not going to, it doesn't mean that people won't do things in the right time, in the right way. But just sort of in generally, there's an immaturity to this year. And if it tries, the year doesn't really regulate its energy super well. And you can see this with all the stuff that Trump's doing right now. I mean, we had the inauguration and he threw everything up that he possibly could. That was still at the very tail, the whip of the tail of the dragon, but if you look carefully at it, it had an unformed wood quality, right? How many typos did they find in those hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of proclamations, memos, and executive orders that he signed. There were weird typos. They weren't like normal typos that bear the mark of AI. So, it's really easy to think they're so organized this time. They had 4 years to figure it out. They may have some things figured out and they may have some people who really have concentrated power, but we're going to see a lot of stuff that they start this year fall apart, and the same is true for our lives too. We can start things that may fall apart. Just depends. There's a lot of other circumstances to look at. So don't, please don't freak out because, we all have different charts and we all have different things, but we're talking about the overarching karma that's surrounding us all, that we're all sharing the energy of the time. And so go to the next slide. Not that one. Okay, actually, Sarah, sure, stay there. Let's talk about this. I don't need to show it to you. I'm going to tell you. Those of you on the other side of the screen. So the native element yin fire. So we just talked about how the yin wood snake is hidden. So we do have to watch out for depression, like I said, and excess yin. But that smoldering quality can also look like grudges or feel illusions of helplessness. Doesn't mean that we're actually helpless. An illusion that we're helpless. Oh, we can't do anything about it. Actually, back on the Trump thing, do you remember 8 years ago when Trump came into office the first time? He got elected in a fire monkey year. Everything was all over the place. It was the first time that we'd really seen a crazy year. Now all the years are kind of crazy, but that was the first year that everything really, that was the first Gregorian New Year when everyone said, I'm so glad that this year is over. That was like a new funny thing to say. And now everyone kind of says it every year, because this is negative, but it doesn't need to, it's just like get on board with the energy of time, people. But that was the first year that people said, oh, 2016 was so crazy. Well, it was crazy because it was monkey, and monkey is, up to antics. And, it was like Benghazi and okay, Hillary just did this great debate. And then, it was just hijinks all the time. Right. And then he got inaugurated. and it was a fire rooster year. Rooster is like, we're going to drill down on what's happening here. We can't have all this crazy anymore. We need to pick. That's the difference between monkey and rooster. And fire monkey, it was a really big expression. And fire rooster is we're not afraid to fight about it. So we got fundamentalism that we'd never seen in this country before. So think back 8 years, right? But what did that mean when Trump came into office? We saw all these protests, there were like pussy hats, and we saw mass deportations back then. People came out into the streets. We saw children separated from their families. People protested. Now everyone's just like sitting in their houses and like drinking wine and saying, this is crazy. We can't do anything. It's so big. Mm-hmm. Right? This is Yin Wood Snake. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Watch it, but just, maybe don't drink the wine. Like, don't get depressed. Just watch it. Go. We can't fight it because we can't yet. Maybe, or maybe we can. Maybe some of us can at some times. Maybe some lunar months. Like, we're gonna have a fire snake month actually this year. We don't get a fire snake month every year. There are some other interesting lunar months. The summer months, we could see some action. Immature snakes, excuse me. Immature snakes don't just hide. Sometimes they strike. And I mean, we live in an area where there are rattlesnakes. Mm-hmm. If you get struck by an immature rattlesnake, it's much worse news than if you get struck by a mature rattlesnake, because an immature rattlesnake is just going to dump it all into you. They can't regulate themselves. So it doesn't mean that like big things can't or won't happen. It's just going to be that the timing could be weird. or the timing could be weird, or the timing could get lucky and be great. I mean, things are going to move on. But the other thing about it is that it kind of doesn't matter what happens, because we're going to go through a learning process, because we're snake. It's snake energy. So it doesn't matter whether your project succeeds or fails on a level. It doesn't matter if your timing was wrong, because you'll still get something deep, some growth out of it. Oh yeah, and sloppily rendered back alley cover-ups. That's also very Yin Wood Snake. That sounds like the administration that we're dealing with, doesn't it?
Are you taking questions during the presentation, or is it better to save them for after?
Oh, I'll save some time after.
Really?
Okay, now do the next one. Okay, no, back. Yes, okay, that's the one. The opportunity. I'm gonna show you. No, I'm just gonna tell you. The opportunity here is to live from the heart. What is the most yin, deepest organ? The heart. I mean, it's a fire organ. Yin, fire, right? It's a yin, or it's not like kidneys. That's yin, water, right? The heart. We have an opportunity, and snakes move instinctively. They're not like brainiacs like roosters and monkeys, but especially roosters are, Snakes are intelligent, but they're instinctive. They're just in the moment, right there. So connect with the heart as the sovereign and experience your sovereignty. That's what's available this year. Even if you're doing it from a place of relative protection or hiding, because it's a Yin Wood Snake Year, connect with your heart. And if we can do that, and if we can really self-reflect, then a grounded leadership capacity is available within each and every one of us. And maybe we won't express it much this year, but it's developing, it's cooking. And we'll use it because we're moving into fire horse, which we will probably see some strong leadership coming out. It could be a more confrontational year. And fire goat, that's when we really see people working together. Horse energy also is working in a very working for camaraderie. Horse energy is very much about moving from that wisdom of yin fire, the snake's element, into yang fire, the flare, the flame. And horses are herd animals, but they're spirited, and they don't have to be herd animals. Like they want to be with their group. They will do a lot to be with their group. One of my astrology students actually just gave me a really cool book about horses. I'm learning. I'll have so much to share for you next year about horses from this book, but they're very like the horse in Chinese astrology isn't like a finicky, fussy horse. It's a horse bred to go into battle. It's very courageous. It's not going to flinch. So fire horse is going to be able to really do some stuff. And fire, and then next will be goat, and it won't be fire goat. What will it be? I guess it'll be earth goat, which is no. Is it going to be fire goat? Yeah, it's going to be fire goat. Fire goat, right? So that's real pull in time. So we need this year to rest. The magic of snake happens underground. So rest, dream journaling, dream practice, plain old sleep. Like just take care of your physiology. It's enough. The year has a potential to get more comfortable after summer and consolidate, you know. What's the next one? Okay, let's talk about the kinds of snakes we have. I'm going to show you the slide now. The people at home are like, why aren't you showing me the slides? Sorry. Here, now you'll see them. Okay. You can screenshot. I'm going to send the slides to you, people at home. Don't worry. You showed them all the other ones, right, Adam? Yeah. Okay. This is what we just talked about. Oh, I should tell you, the disharmonies in the Yin Wood year are related to the spleen, the heart, small intestine, and the liver, just because of wood mostly. Small intestine is important to think about because the reason that the heart can get problems is because the blood gets weird. So if the blood gets weird, that happens because of the small intestine, what we're eating and how we're like working with emotional stress, whether the small intestine is pulling the emotional stress away from the heart. And so it can go down and out, you know, through the UB. So watch your mind from the heart perspective, but also from the small intestine emotionality perspective. The heart mind isn't like, oh, I feel this, that's emotions. Like the heart mind is like presence. It's, you know, and then watch your spleen, you know, eat well, don't eat cruddy stuff. Yeah. And then let's see. We just talked about the opportunities. Okay, let's talk about the snakes. So here I just put up some of the snakes from the past years so you can see what kind of snake you would be if you were born before 1965. It just repeats. It would just go water, metal, earth, fire, wood, and then water, metal, earth, fire, wood again. So the wood snakes, you can see 1965. Bjork, who is she really? Right? Like, is she even human? Maybe she is, and we just don't know what we're doing. Like, really? Okay. There's just a fearlessness about snakes, right? Do you think J.K. Rowling gives a what anybody thinks, you know? And what a way to draw on the mythic, right? A snake, only a snake can do what Harry Potter is. Jean-Paul Sartre, I mean, it's existentialism on the stage. We're going to display for you, like, let's look at our existentialism. That is so snake. I love it. I love it. I love it. Howard Hughes. Now there's a person who wears many skins, you know? Okay, next. Okay. These are the ones I really want to tell you about. Billie Eilish, my friends. Taylor Swift. Have you seen the Taylor Swift documentary? What a snake. There's a whole documentary about this person and you still have no idea who she is. She's like a screen. She's that projector right there. They're just shining up on it. Remember when she used to be a country singer and we weren't sure if she was a Republican? Some of you are old enough. I know you remember that. And then finally she was like, I can't handle it anymore. And so she just went ahead and said, I'm voting Democrat and you should too. And also here's a bunch of poorly done LGBTQIA, stuff that actually pissed off, as I understand it. Maybe I'm not the most knowledgeable person about this, but I understand that was a little bit sloppily done. Why do we think that we're seeing the real Taylor Swift now? She's a very good businesswoman. I mean, speaking of good businesswomen who are snakes, Martha Stewart, maybe you saw that documentary. Did you know she had been a model and also worked in finance? Snakes. But Billie Eilish, she's my favorite. Okay, the album that she became the artist who received the most Grammys for was an album that was called something like When We All Go to Sleep, Where Do We Go? Snake. That's the motto of Snake. And actually the funny thing about that is that there's an answer for that. I mean, many wisdom traditions can tell you the answer to that question. For those of us who are curious, she can look at it, but also just look at her songs. I mean, Zanny, like it's all the depressive, she did it alone in her room, low tech, because she's a powerhouse. People didn't even notice she was beautiful until she did that Vogue cover where she's wearing like a corset and like pink and has platinum blonde hair and is styled in a more mainstream way. But people didn't notice. Like you didn't notice? Of course she's beautiful. She's totally beautiful. But nobody noticed before that because she came up wearing this big oversized like black and green suit and had the like green hair. And people were like, who is this? We feel a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, how skillful is Billie Eilish? I'm very impressed. I'm very, very, and also, okay, what's the song? I'm going to read you, it's just a poetry moment. Okay, the song. I'm serious. Go home and listen to You Should See Me in a Crown, or watch her receive one of her acceptances for one of her Grammys. And she's grimacing and then she's smiling and then she's grimacing. That's that snake. Like, I don't want to be seen. Okay. Thank you. Ooh, that discomfort. I think when I saw that the first time, I thought, boy, women are just not taught how to embrace their success. She's up there practically apologizing and wincing. But then I realized she's a snake. I mean, the other thing might be true too. But I'm just going to read you the first 5 lines of You Should See Me in a Crown. Do you know that song, You Should See Me in a Crown? Bite my tongue, bide my time. Right? Hide and wait. That is snake. Wearing a warning sign. Who's not afraid of snakes? I mean, they're scary. Wait till the world is mine. Visions. All the mysticism. Visions I vandalize. Cold in my kingdom size. I mean, I'm not going to keep going. You can, I'm really excited about it though. Sarah Michelle Gellar, that's Buffy. What happened to Buffy? She's poof, gone. Snake. See, they can like be there at the right moment, but then when they're done, anyone else to talk about? Jackie O, the famous sunglasses. Also John F. Kennedy, interesting. So you can see the kind of like depression and also powerhouse energy that Snake has. I mean, okay, Ella Fitzgerald, both Indira Gandhi and also Mohandas Gandhi. I think it's interesting. Goethe, that at the bottom. I mean, we're going back to 1749 here, but yeah. So I wanted you to know about these snake people. What else do I need to tell you about? All right, kind of getting through it. This is probably the most important thing I want to say tonight. Okay. I'm going to give it a beat before I tell you the most important stuff. Okay, I'm retracting that. See, my timing. It's the Yin Wood Snake. It's hard to have good timing right now. All right. These are the kind of takeaways about the year, but I'm going to end with the most important one. So don't get lost. Okay. The Yin Wood Snake acts a little helpless, but it's just an illusion. Okay, so if you are feeling helpless, You're not. It means you just need to like work with your timing and work with your transits and self-reflect. It isn't the greatest year for brand new big projects. Brand new big projects could fall apart a little bit just because they don't have the accumulated energy and momentum, or they might not have the timing. That being said, because this year doesn't have as much strong uh as much strong, easy to see energy. And because this year sort of recedes into the background a little bit more, your year, your animal will be important. Your chart will be important, you know? So things that we try and don't work, we can be flexible about. Wood energy is flexible. And we can learn. Wood energy is trainable. I mean, it's true that snake energy doesn't really care if we learn the easy way or the hard way, you know? That is true. But our minds can be more flexible with the wood influence. So don't get like inert. Just keep learning. The main takeaways of the year could be hidden. We might not see them or we might not understand them until later, but there's still an action happening. And a lot of that action is going to be internal transformation that we might not know about until later. So it's not just what we're seeing in the news, it's what we're doing ourselves and what we're doing as communities. And then this is the most important one. Ready? Please use humor. Use humor in a year like this. Don't take yourselves too seriously. Don't take the reality that we're perceiving too seriously. And this is a really valuable tool because it helps us undermine illusion. You know, if we get really serious with something, then we get like really committed to knocking it down or holding it up. And then it becomes harder to see like, oh, this was just an idea we were playing with. This was just a thought exercise. This was just a social experiment. You should check Mitra. Yeah. And oh, this is the most important reason to tell you about humor. Humor undermines fear. Fun fact, they've done research and it shows that autocracies are tumbled most readily by humor. If you make fun of an autocrat, they really, really don't like it. Because then they have to decide, oh, are we going to shut that down? That's unacceptable. We can't have them saying that about me. If you shut it down, then it gets more news coverage and then more people know about it. And then you might have to admit that you didn't like that or that it was real. Okay. So it's really important to just kind of have fun and also humor is going to protect against that yin wood tendency for depression. Yeah. Okay. Socially and politically, false starts. Kind of covered this. Hidden projects, backroom dealings, payoffs. I think we kind of talked about the public sphere and business. Yeah, relationships. Actually, let's go to health next. Timing. With health, this is a year to observe, to concentrate your energy. This is a really important year for internal work. Path dreaming. If you've got a damp condition, go see your acupuncturist. Yeah, and also for mental health stuff, go see your acupuncturist and also your therapist. Yeah, like I started to say earlier that the heart and the shen in Chinese medicine is not this like airy fairy thing. It's more associated with like just are you conscious, you know? And also then the next kind of level from that is are you conscious and are you present, right? So work with your nervous system. Also wood element, we want to work with the nervous system. And you can refine your instincts, you know, through balance. Let's go back to business a bit. Snake invites imagination. So this is a good time to reevaluate how things are done. 60 years ago, we just had the introduction of the push button phone and the television and the color TV. So we had no idea how much that was going to change our world. Obviously, I mean, AI existed before the dragon year, but people didn't use it the way that they use it now. I mean, now doesn't, I mean, like, raise your hand if you haven't used AI yet. Yeah, but hasn't your phone thrusted on you? I mean, like, how do you even, yeah, is it even possible to Google the way that we used to? Like, it's impossible. Like, I'm like, I don't want to use AI. I'm going to Google this. Actually, I was looking up snakes for this talk, and I gave it something really simple. I was like, tell me give me public figures in the arts and politics and whatever that are from, because you know the Lunar New Year starts sometime in January or sometime in February. So I didn't want to just say like, tell me about everyone in 1965. What I wanted was, I didn't want to like accidentally catch a dragon or catch a horse. So I gave them the dates, and it just, no matter how many times I did it, it was giving me weird dates, either completely wrong or only people born in February. It was so weird. And I was like, wow, AI really is, you know, undercooked. But last year in Dragon Year, it went into widespread use. And now it's really being like all that learning from what didn't work from my, you know, I'm sure they're using what I like their failure to answer, just like basically who are the famous snakes. Like that shouldn't be that hard. I didn't say it as snakes because that would be way too hard for AI. But if I just give the dates, just couldn't even do that. So we're gonna really see it come out even more powerful. Okay, now let's talk about romance. Snake energy is about seductive power. And mystery. So it should be a hot year. Now, whether it's hot because there's actual intimacy or not, you really have to pay attention, because snake energy can really fool you. But snake energy also, like when it's ready to show itself. I actually just learned from one of my Polestar colleagues who I work with over at Dayuan Circle. We collaborate on some projects. Shout out to Rachel Hendrickson. She was telling us that snakes actually hibernate like in these little bundles underground. So even though the general teaching about the snake is independence and solitude, they actually do like hang out in a little clutch under the ground to consolidate warmth through the winter months underneath the frozen ground, which is such an amazing image. I'd never seen it before. And then someone else in the group said, I've seen that. I bumped into those once in the wild. Amazing. So for relationships, you know, just pay attention. Be honest with yourself and like look in a sober way at your partner to see what's going on. Or also just, I don't know, it's a wood snake year, so just like wait and see what presents in the next year. You know, it doesn't mean you need to like it's not a big, it's like actually kind of a chill year to just like hang out in something that you're still watching. You don't have to make a decision. But it also can be a really great year for deepening. And snakes take choosing partners very seriously. So it is possible for really potent relationships to begin or solidify in this year. Yeah. So now I'll take a couple questions, and then I'm going to talk about the 12 animals. Let me take a couple from the, I will now look at the chat, but first I'll take some from the room. So those who are at home, you can type in your question. Oh yeah, Bob Dylan, someone points out. Oh yeah, 1989, right. Okay, someone's asking, okay, let's take room questions first. No, I've got an internet question. Y'all think about your room. I want some questions in a minute. I've got a question here from Bill about the prior snake years. 2001 had 9/11 and 2013 was the Boston bombing. Yeah, 9/11 is notable because it was such a very carefully orchestrated attack. And where did it come from? A hidden place. Actually, Adam, can you bring up the slide that shows the dates of snake years, just so that I can think about this? Yeah, that's good. That'll work. Okay. So 2001, the September 11th attacks was such a snake signature, and that was metal snake. So that's metal acting on fire, the native element, right? So, does that answer your question, Bill? Other years that were as particular in history, particularly. Oh, you know what? I actually want to say something else. About 60 years ago in 1965, last year at the Dragon Year talk, I mentioned that historians said that in the Wood Dragon Year, 1960, historians were not talking about dragon, obviously. They were talking about 1964. So when you think the 60s, just everything that comes up in your mind, the 60s, what you're probably thinking of was stuff that happened in 1964. That's how important the dragon year was. And so I'm using this to answer your question, Bill, because what we're doing now is still so much to do with having had a wood dragon year. Because wood, anytime you have a dragon year, you're not just looking at one dragon. You're looking at all the dragons. You're looking at the conclusion of one 60-year dragon and the beginning of another one, and then we have even larger cycles other than 60. But because of the scale of human life, we think a lot about 60 and 120-year cycles, don't we? You know, by the time we've lived 60 years, we've seen 5 of our own annual years in each of the 5 elements, and then we are coming back to our element, right? So a baby that's born in a wood snake year is going to go through this year, and the wood snake year is going to go through all 5. And then when they get to wood again, it'll be yang wood, that, you know, in 60 years, that's when they'll turn 60. So 60 is kind of like, I don't know, the Chinese idea of like, you know, becoming like turning 18 or 21 or something like that. It's like, okay, now you're real, now you're big, right? So what happened in 1964, kind of, we're really only seeing last year, like now, last year in a dragon year. And what's starting just began last year. So when we're thinking about the snake, especially the wood snake, we can't really think about it independently from that 60-year cycle either. And the context of 1964, okay, you know, if I say think about the 60s, that's giving you a lot of information about what's going on culturally. And like you're probably thinking about the Beatles, and you're probably thinking about, you know, youth culture, which was never important before the 60s. And you're thinking about bucking the mainstream. That all came for the first time in the 60s. And now we're still obsessed with youth culture, and we're still interested in bucking the mainstream, and we're still, you know, all these things. But look at how we got to that 1964, 1965 dragon snake year. I think it's really important for us to think about now, because we just come through a very contentious, what was it, water tiger and then water rabbit year resolved it kind of. But there, you know, leading up to water tiger year, we had the arms race. We built bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger nukes. And then we decided, you know, everyone was wondering if back then if we were going to live, if there was going to be a world. And then in rabbit year, we kind of figured out that maybe we should sign some peace agreements and continue having a world. Well, the weapons have sort of changed, but it's a little bit of that same energy now. I see a lot of very apocalyptic thinking. And, you know, of course, there was a choice. Maybe they might have used nuclear. Maybe we could still go nuclear. I mean, hopefully, you know, this is like a contract that we make with one another to not go nuclear. And we actually do have individual power with that in our little relationships. You know, out on the street when we're like super angry, having road rage because of whatever somebody did, like we can choose to not go nuclear. We can choose to like not go blow up the grocery store or the school. You know, we can like keep our middle finger nicely wrapped around the steering wheel. and just get where we're trying to go and think about how that person might be having a hard day and maybe we're having a hard, you see what I mean? So when we can look at the larger perspective, it helps. And so, Bill, yeah, 9/11, it's perfect. And actually, I think about that kind of thing a lot because when we see these authoritarian crackdowns, when we see wars where people are trying to obliterate an ideology, it does not work. It goes into hiding. Okay, so they killed Osama bin Laden, in his home. They looked all over caves. It's all so snaky, isn't it, when you think about it? And I know that wasn't a snake year, probably. I don't know when he died, but you get the idea that that war, it's just, it 9/11 came out of hidden causes. And then there was this, it was used to justify an ideology of obliterating people, like a whole basically religious view, but it was a radicalized terrorist view. But you can't really, like, you can kill all the radical terrorists, but you're just going to get, if those people that they're coming from are disenfranchised, you're just going to get another crop of them. And so I think this is why large dragony things are so powerful when you look at them over the scope of time, but large government has a tendency to like fall apart, and we're looking at that a lot right now. And so the power that we're going to move into in the next 2 years is probably going to come possibly from a hidden place. I mean, we have choices. Even if the power remains centralized in the power structures that we see now, the people who are moving them are certainly going to be hidden. Yeah. Who's got who's got a question in the room? Anybody? Yeah.
You were talking about depression and mental health, and so it's too much in, but since you want to still be self-reflective, like how do you approach or treat depression and mental health a way that a snake would?
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question for the people at home if you couldn't hear it. The question is, if this is a year that has a tendency to go toward depression and helplessness, right? How do we treat that?
Yeah, approach and treat them.
How do we, but you said it like as a snake would, like how does a snake
Yeah.
deal with
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
So you
How
don't
does,
go young on it, right?
Yeah.
You don't go just like, let's put some fire onto it.
put some fire on it? Well,
How do you work with depression or with that, but in a way that actually is a deeper way to move it?
yeah. The snake has to live in the barnyard, like around, like in proximity, maybe not in the barnyard, but the snake knows the barnyard is barnyarding, so the snake when the snake recognizes that its special power is to see through phenomena, then it understands that it can still engage and still love and still be loved, that it can still give, that it can still receive. Ming once said about snakes that, he was talking about Water Snake Year, and we have to be really careful because the different elements of the different years make a really huge difference on what the meaning of the year is. Water Snake was so big and so vast, but he said in Water Snake Year that it was a good year to go on retreat, and not necessarily by putting on fancy clothes or saying special magic words, but just by opening your eyes, just see through phenomena. And so it's a wood snake year. We're not sure how, but that's where I get tingles right now, because look at our world. We're not sure how, and we don't know who the leader is who's going to show us. How have the spiritual leaders been doing the last 12 years? Like, not great. You know, like the power abuses that we're finally in this time ready to look at. And the you know, it's funny because I was talking earlier with you about how we live in a very aggressive time. The mainstream culture in the Western world is very aggressive, but a lot of fringe groups are very aggressive too. Very quick to judge who's right and who's wrong and like cut people down who really are trying to work with them, maybe hold very many of the same beliefs, you know? So this is kind of a year, it's not like a kumbaya, like goat, we're all in this together kind of, you know, and it's not like a cuddly rabbit. I mean, rabbits are, by the way, very strong, very effective. But it isn't that like cuddly kind of rabbit time either, but there's a way that Yin Wood Snake, like people who are trying to take advantage, you know, leadership doesn't get a lot of respect this year because you know, like who's gonna I think that one of the things that we're really reevaluating is leadership itself. You know, how can you know, God, not only are like fringe groups often very aggressive, but even spiritual groups, you know? So like the people who you'd think you'd go to find out how to open your eyes, so many of them have a like a young aggression, like a tiger titan realm. You know, some people do have a fire inner nature that's gonna like needs to break through, needs to feel like it overcame some enormous obstacle, needs to feel like I had to do this to open my eyes. You know, that would be like a tiger year person or a tiger inner nature, if you know your inner nature in your chart. I mean, not tiger, excuse me, fire inner nature in your chart. But like caution Titan realm. Like, what are you trying to be better than? Why so fast? Like, isn't it okay? Are things okay? Are things okay when they're not okay? I mean, really, if we look at the teachings, we know that people who Ming once had this story. I'm going to get this wrong. So someone, when someone hears this, I know you'll hear me and you'll correct this and I'll put it up for you, the corrected version. But Ming told the story about one of his Tibetan teachers who he was with, and he was like, yeah. And then they had, you know, the Chinese soldiers had killed all of my family and left all of their bodies in this really horrific way. And I had to go back and take all of, you know, my close family members' dead bodies down and bury them or give them proper funerals. Like it was a really intense thing. And he was just sharing with Ming what happened. And Ming was just, I'm so sorry, you know? And he looked, and the guy, and he looked, his teacher looked at him and said, I'm sorry, I don't know which teacher this is. He looked at him and he said, oh, you think that some suffering is more special than others? You know? So Yin Wood Snake, right? Equal opportunity for introspection. Okay to be a beginner. We're all beginners. We don't know, like, I mean, who's the last person you know like personally who light-bodied? You know? Like, I think there's some people in this room who know people who light-bodied, but like, that's because we live in a really unusual place, you know, and I know that people are like, some people are home like light body on Google, you know, like, so Yin Wood Snake, you know, just don't get heavy, just notice it. Like, this is why we're having this conversation. This is why we're, putting this up on the website for people to be able to see and learn about this. Yes.
Hey, I don't know if I want to ask the question I was going to ask earlier. This one's kind of vague, so
Let's hear it.
tell me if it's not. Anyway, I'm trying to piece together like this. I love the Gregorian gaslighting and like misaligning us with our bodies and the earth and it just feels like there's this interesting territory of almost like adjacent to how mythology might be functioning in our mind body, in that these narratives of like the animals and the elements, like I'm sure they have so many layers of meaning, but that it feels as if there's some relationship between using imagery to help us connect something in our narrative world to our physical world. And that seems to come up in like working with bodies, that like if people can kind of engage in imagery in their bodies, like elements, for example, that it kind of helps them reconnect to their bodies. And I'm just, again, I said it's kind of vague. It's a half-baked question, but I was just really interested in this.
Okay, let's figure out the question together.
Gaslighting, and if you could speak more to how we reconnect to the earth and reading what's coming.
How do we get
Reading
out
the
of
world and our
Gregorian?
bodies
Yeah.
through
How
connecting
do
to
we-
a different form of
Okay.
narrative and calendar.
So the question is, how do we get out of the Gregorian, the pattern of Gregorian gaslighting, and get more in touch? You said something about the 5 elements, right?
Yeah.
And sounds like you're also speaking to living in a mythopoetic way.
Yeah, the
It's where you're-
mythopoetic seems to
Mhm.
be connected to reconnecting to the
Yeah.
earth body and our personal bodies in a way that
So,
is
so
more
this is
connected.
this is what I love about Chinese philosophy, Chinese theory, Chinese medicine, is that it's associative wisdom. So instead of having like 10 commandments, I'm not trying to dump on Christianity at all, but like instead of having like a bunch of fine pointed rules and didactic information that you have to memorize and live by, you know, there's when we become a student of time, and we can do this in really simple ways, just by simply watching the Tong Shu. Look at the Tong Shu, the Chinese almanac calendar, and actually, people who are interested in that, please, you can let me know, because I'm going to be there's a plan in play for putting together some kind of class for that, and we just talked about it in our astrology class, because it's sort of a way to like microdose view, if you will, just by watching the calendar and coordinating ourselves with time. And we can do that in a very simple way, just by doing body practices that acknowledge, and dietary practices that acknowledge the season that we're in. But what I love about reading mythology from any traditional culture, really, is fine. You'll see the symbols and they'll jump out at you when it's the right moment. So when I say that Chinese view is associative, this is why, you know, one of my main mentors has been Bob Levine. And you know, he was successfully keeping people with HIV, AIDS alive before we knew what it was. How did he do that? We couldn't see through the microscope what it was. What's going on? What's going on? The scientists were scrambling to try to figure it out, and people were dying, and there was no treatment, and it was horrible. And he was helping people. Why? Because Chinese medicine is associative. We're very, very good at very refined generalization. You know, we can really usefully generalize. So instead of it feeling hokey, like, okay, 5 elements, like it's circling the A, B, or C, or D, or E on like a Cosmo quiz and then count all the, you know, that's how I felt about Ayurvedic medicine when I first heard about it. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, I'm like 1 or some combination of these. Like, this is really stupid. But of course, the medicine gets much more complex. But it doesn't like narrow itself down so it's so sticky that it can't move. So when we're presented with HIV/AIDS, we can treat it. And then when the drugs come out, we can use them, and then we can see what their effects are, and we can go, oh, the energy of that medicine is cold or inflaming, or, you know, like, and then we treat them to be able to deal with their meds, like, no problem, right? There's no like rules. It's great, but there are associations. And they start in a really simple way, like start with 5 elements, start with understanding the season, start with looking at the mythology. And then you can just let that speak to you, because it will. And when you live in it, and it's like, and when you're feeling pulse, I mean, we were, you know, tongue diagnosis in Chinese medicine got really popular because there was a big epidemic and they didn't want to get close and do pulse. So, in our field, when COVID first started, in China, we were getting, like long before we were seeing cases here in America, we were seeing tongues of people with COVID left and right. And we were already strategizing. Okay, there's like a really heavy damp component. There's this, okay, it looks like, oh, it looks like there's it's regional. Wuhan is like this, but now we're seeing it over in this area where it's like hot and dry. I see this. And so we can kind of layer the information, the associations together to get an individualized treatment. And this is what makes our medicine powerful. It's not taught well enough in our schools. And this is one reason that I'm passionately speaking for staying in our Chinese medicine. I know that sometimes we have to like, I know that sometimes we end up treating a certain patient population because we like it, but like niche medicine really hurts the practice of Chinese medicine, because then we have people working on a very narrow slice rather than grounding in what is our theory. Because the more we can layer associations, the better we're going to meet the needs of an individual. And we're going to understand, I mean, okay, even if you do see like just oncology or just fertility or just perimenopause, or, you know, and we get all the weird stuff that Western medicine's like, you know, and we also get people who are like, I know something's wrong, but they say I'm okay. What is that? You know, that's great. If you know something's wrong, that's the great reason, because then you're getting out ahead of it, and we can read that's why we can treat subclinical disease that's not presenting yet, because we're finding those associations and treating them before the body has decided, okay, this is going to be cardiovascular disease this time, or no, this is going to be stroke. You know, you know, if we can catch that, you know, 10, 20 years in advance, we can make a world of difference, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, thank you so much to everyone for coming. What's on the next slide? Oh, the 12 animals. I forgot the animals. We're going to do the animals. Let's do the animals. Let's do the animals.
Yay.
I know it's everybody's favorite part, but it's cute. Okay, here we go. Rat. This will be fast. Okay, how many people do I have who are rats? Not that many. Rat people. I'm looking at the chat now, people. If you want to tell me if you're, I'm not looking at the chat. I'm lying. You can raise your thumb or something, or hand. Oh, there's my chat. I can look at the chat and present. Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, okay. All right, Joe's a rat. Okay, we got some rats. Thank you, Joe. Rats. Rats have a tougher time with the stillness that the snake asks for. They really want to like get into what they're supposed to be doing and chew, 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 chew at their thing. It isn't a year that lends itself to being like broken down into smaller pieces of a project and then attacked, you know, bit by bit. That's what rats are good at. But rats do live in the subterranean realm. So rats like to hide. You know, it's a great year again for sleep and dream and recalibration. So that's good for rats. You can reframe your circumstances well. So from underground, you can like turn, think about that kind of thing. Yeah. And it, of course, depends on, you know, of course, everyone, it depends on your hour, everything too, because that makes a big difference in this year as well. Okay. Next, ox. Do I have any oxes? Oxen. Hi. You're hiding back there. Okay. Got some. Oh, okay. We got a couple oxen here. All right. So ox is in a very special relationship. They're on the trine with the snake. So it's a very good year. You know, ox is very consistent at doing what it's doing, and snake is very consistent at trying not to exist. So they both kind of live from this autopilot kind of instinct place. So ox does not like change. It's like it has the least flexible spine probably of any of the animals. And of course, snake really is able to move. But since it's on the trine, it's gonna be able to deal with change more safely than under normal circumstances. So the year should get more stable as it progresses, which is what the ox really wants. So don't get stagnated. The heaviness of the ox is what to watch out for. All right, and team up to be able to work with the program. It'll, things that would be normally outside of your comfort zone, you'll be able to manage well. Okay. Next, tigers. Okay. Okay, here we've got, right, we've got a fire tiger here online. Generally a challenging year, but last year was too. Tigers want to be visceral. They want to have big, noticeable energy. But the action this year is where you can't reach it. So tigers have, they have big energy. And I wrote here, you have big energy on level with dragons, except dragons are not attached. But I don't mean that like, dragons, it isn't that they're detached necessarily in like the dharmic way. They can be. That's great if they are. But they kind of just like don't care because they kind of don't touch anything as in the same way. They sort of touch everything and nothing, which is why it's easy for a dragon to feel isolated. Tigers come with this like very visceral energy. They want to do something and they want to work with, and they want to like use their muscle to make something happen. And they're very good at it. They're world bridgers, really. So that's kind of where tigers get into trouble. So when I say that they get into trouble because they're attached, it's not this like dharmic, oh, you're so attached kind of thing. It's more like you have something that you're here to do, and it's hard to do in this year. So snakes don't want anything. They don't really care whether anything gets done. But this is the wood version of snake, and tiger's native element is wood. They're yang wood. The yin wood native element, by the way, matches the rabbit. So it's that very hunkered down and in. Yeah, so it's actually, you'll see, I'll tell you about rabbit in a minute. But for tiger, the native element matches a little bit, so that helps. But look into that black stripe. So be sure to get your rest, get your dream, get your sleep, do your disappearing act. Snakes like to disappear, and tigers like to be very charismatic and then withdraw. They're like, hello, I have a million things to do and I want to tell you all about it. And then whoosh, where they go, Sometimes it's really constructive, like actual retreat. And sometimes it's just like staring through Netflix on repeat, same with snakes, really. So we can just work on making that more conscious. Rabbits. Okay, rabbit native element. Rabbits? Who are my rabbits? All right, good. Okay, yes. Yes, we've got some rabbits. The element is compatible. Oh, we have another one online too. Good. So rabbits should do well if you stick with burrowing. It's the same underground dimension. Great year for relationships. Rabbits really, really want their relationships to happen. And this is like a year to go, like mystical intimacy. So, very, very good for that. So rabbits are intuitive, which is not really the same thing as mystical. In fact, typically rabbits, like a true rabbit is threatened by mysticism. They're like, they just want to be safe. They're like, okay, that's really cool. And I like being intuitive, but like how crazy do we have to get to mystical? Like, that's a little too crazy for me, but rabbits are, they're very strong when they're well-resourced. A well-resourced rabbit will like do anything for anyone and they're so generous. And if they feel solid, they can move so much energy. So this is a year where you can like dip into, scratch the surface and dip into mysticism a little bit. There might be a little bit of overlap on the Venn diagram. Okay, next. Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
They're modest dragons in this room. You're like,
Very modest.
modest dragon. Okay. Constructive year. You guys are the ones who didn't even need to come to this or any other Lunar New Year talk. Dragons are fine in every single year, but they're great in a dragon year and they're fascinated by a snake year. Snake energy is kind of like the negative space of the dragon. Remember I was talking about the dragon like the sky and the snake is like the underground. It's like perfect symmetry. That's really interesting to the dragon. It's the only realm that the dragon kind of can't reach because the dragon's like a composite animal, a mixture of everything. So when they see snakes, they're like, okay, I don't really get you. That's cool, but I'm kind of like you because I'm big in the same way. It's very interesting. So they're like dragon and snake are a famous mystical magical yin yang pair. So dragons are gonna have a great year. So yeah. Yay for dragons. Help us out, dragons. Help us out. Okay. Snakes. Do we have snakes today? Snakes in the room? Okay, right. Wait, there was someone raised their hand and I couldn't see them. Typical snake. Your year, your energy. If you're good with your energy, it'll be a great year. Some people call it when it's your own year, no matter what animal you are. When you hit your year, it makes it a good bad luck year when it matches your own. So it'll just feel like more of whatever it is that you are. If you've self-reflected, that's fine. And if you haven't, you'll still probably have a great year, but you have to be focused on what you're trying to hunt. You know, if you're like, I don't know, then it could be, I'm scared. Then, just know that you can move through that. That's what you are as a snake, as someone who can navigate the dark, Can you imagine being able to navigate the dark underground, not being able to see what's going on and not having arms or legs? That's what you are. So yay, snakes. Okay, horses. Do we have any horses? Ah, we have a horse. Okay. Oh, we have more than one horse. Oh, and some horses online. Okay. All right. So horses are remember we talked about how we're going from how we go from yin fire snake in the natural calendar to the yang fire horse. Well, this is not a yin fire snake year, but it does move naturally into horse year, but it's not the time for the drive that a horse has. So next year is actually going to be your native year. Next year is going to be a yang fire horse year. That's pretty exciting. Anyone turning 60, you were born in a yin fire horse year, and you're going to be actually having your yang fire horse year, which is super exciting. So just hang out. It means that that horses naturally express that inward fire that snake has. It moves it outward into productive material reality, but it's not time yet. So there's nothing that really blocks a horse this year. There's just no drive there. So if you have something you really need to do and you have the drive inside yourself, then great, but you just be careful because you could deplete yourself. Okay. Oh yeah, we have some fire horses talking about their fire horsiness. Okay, goats. Got some goats. Okay, the goats are the quintessential Confucian animal. Strong focus on the well-being of the group, wants to uplift. It's herd mentality in a really playful and like level-headed kind of way. Goats, they climb up on these cliffs and they're totally calm. They're standing on a ledge the width of their hoof or even smaller sometimes. And like the shape of their eye, I guess this is like this. No, it's like this. It's like this. It prevents them from freaking out because they don't really understand like how far they have to fall or how much farther up they have to go. Sorry, goats. but it means that they're totally able to handle it. And they're like, okay, there's a mountain lion over there. Have you seen the YouTube videos? So I'm going to bring my baby goat along with me. And like, oh, if I go that way, the mountain lion's coming down over there now. Oh shit, you know? So, but I mean, goats in their native element are earth element, animals. And they're, you know, so they have a deep chill in them, kind of the way that like dragon's native element is also earth. So we could feel that a little bit last year, that even though it was a young wood dragon year, there was still this kind of like, this is going to ground out. This is going to ground out. So goats can trust that things will ground. But there's not a lot of energy for goats. Goats don't care about the group at all, but it's not actively trying to dismantle it. So use the new energy, the yin energy, to as a time to adjust. Okay. Then we've got,
Snakes don't care about the group at all.
You said goat.
oh, snakes don't care about the group at all. Thank you. Okay. Monkey. Monkeys. Ah. Okay. Yeah. Monkeys are a really interesting pair. They're like, you know, some of the math suggests that they're very incompatible. Some of the mathematical models for how we understand the 60 shows that it's very incompatible, but then some others, and there's some mythology that suggests that it's very, very positive. I don't really know what to make of it because Ming never spoke directly on that, and I can't find a reference in a book, but I'm trying. However, I can say that monkey doesn't take the world seriously, and snake doesn't either, but they're doing it in a different way. Like monkeys like to try on different hats and different costumes, and they play at monkeys play at who they are, or they try to figure out who they are by playing at what they're not. So they're kind of hard to know in the same way as a snake is. So different motivations, but same result. Monkeys are extremely flexible. And that monkey energy can be like a protective naivete and humor in a year like this. So I think a good year. Rooster. Any roosters? Okay. So roosters are in a special relationship with the snake. They have a mythic quality. They're a mythic pairing. Roosters, their skill is to come at a situation with precision and with timing. And they're coming from above, like it's a yang expression, whereas snakes are coming with precision from below. So it's a classic mythological yin yang pair, and they're also on the trine. I mean, what's not to love? It's good. Oh, I see I've got some snakes on here. Let's see. Okay, dog. Dogs? Hello. Hello. Oh, hi. You're pretending to be a snake back there. Dogs function around loyalty, and some dogs at home too. Okay. Dogs function around loyalty, and the snake is loyal to none. So it's a disorienting year. It's not like the oppositional energy, dog energy. That would be the pig. But dogs would do well to team up with people who they can be loyal to tune in with the energy of the year. And or it could be a year to reevaluate allegiances. Maybe not a year to act on it, but the trick for dogs is they so deeply want to know who their people are, whether it's like an ideological purpose or a kula or a sangha or a family, that they sometimes aren't flexible around changing allegiance when it's absolutely time to do so. Because especially if they're tired, they're depleted. So this could be a good year to go, oh, do I need to maybe like change something and apply my loyalty in a different way? So it's okay, just rest and it'll be more clear and you'll know when to act, but possibly not this year. So that's dog. And then we have the last but not least, pig. Who are my pigs? My pig people. Hi, pig. Oh, pig. I didn't know you were a pig. Oh, pig. Okay. Yes. Okay. So pigs. It's supposed to be the worst year for pigs, but I actually think it's not that serious. I mean, I really don't. I don't think it's that serious. I've got a pig at home. I know a lot about pig. I've got a nearly 18-year-old pig at home. And so like pigs adore the material. They are just like, why? Why do we have to get into like this deep mystical realm when this, bite of cake tastes so good? Like just here, taste this cake. Like just like and then like boom, enlightenment. See, that's fine. That can work in a snake year. Like so pigs' love of the material world and indulgence of the senses can be oppositional to the self-reflective, alchemical, strategic function of the snake. But they're so moment to moment, and they're so about satisfaction, and they're so about relaxation that as long as they don't get stagnated, then they'll be fine. And don't wallow. If you're a pig who's going through a hard time or feeling like depressed, like don't wallow. Get up and move your body. Like just get on some herbs for your dampness and get some acupuncture or something. Yeah. So that's our presentation today. Any final questions about the animal stuff, or are we good?
You prefer donations and Venmo cash?
Okay. So any questions from the nope. Okay, good. Well, so thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to talk to all of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. And again, we've got here I've got the slide up so you can reach me if you have any other questions that you maybe didn't want to type out in public, or if you in the group want to reach out to me, you can find me. The one on the QR code on the right is our clinic, so you can find me, but I also put my email address right there. And there's the Venmo again, if you want to use that, or also, yes, cash is fine. So that we can take care of some people other than just ourselves, express our generosity, which is probably something I should have included in the proper part of the talk, like generosity is probably a good thing. It's good for every year. It's good medicine for your question. Yeah, generosity. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Everybody, if you still need to make a donation, there are 2 cards in the back there, or on the other side, and you can scan that QR code if you still want to. And we will release the link for the full video recording within a couple of days.
That was awesome. Thank you. Well, let me 1 second. I'm just gonna turn off.
We're gonna go to her and then.
Thank